Hello again, Internet. My name is Evie, and welcome to Education and Beyond. I wanted to go through how I came to the decision to go to grad school. I had graduated undergrad in 2015 and have spent the last 5 years working, and in the back of my mind I always knew that maybe I wanted to become a teacher, but 2020 really hammered home the fact that I should make that leap. So just to go sort of back, I have my undergraduate degrees in political science and economics, and when I graduated I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I had explored doing politics and just found that the universe was a little too toxic for my taste. I knew that I would probably fall into a lot of unhealthy habits, and so I sort of left that behind and then sort of had to figure out what path I wanted to take instead. And after a couple of jobs that I didn't really feel great in, I started working at a nonprofit called the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, because I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, and they do fantastic work. And just as a side note, if you have a community foundation in your area, you should definitely connect with them. Community foundations are great resources as an entry hub to the nonprofit ecosystem and sort of support system in your community. So if you're looking for tips on organizations to donate to, to financially support or volunteer with, to donate your time or anything like that, community foundations are a really good sort of hub. And so I worked for the Greater Cincinnati Foundation for about 2.5 years in a couple of different roles, and I really enjoyed being in the nonprofit sector. It felt really good to be working in a place where I knew that any menial task that I was doing was contributing to something bigger than just, lining some CEO's pockets. But I was I felt a little trapped. It was a really small organization, and I wanted to, move on to more responsibility and grow my career and ambitious mid-20s stuff. So I left and went into the for-profit sector and was there for about just under a year in 2 different jobs. The first job I got, there was this mass layoff, and so I lost my job in 2 months after starting, which was weird. It was just weird. And then I got this great job at a startup, and I was a project manager, and I was really liking it, and all the people that I was meeting were great. And so I started in January of 2020, and early 2020 was just such a mess for so many different reasons, right? The pandemic was starting, and I personally didn't agree with how a lot of government officials and agencies were handling that. And then there was just this litany of publicized, because this happens all the time, but publicized police brutality, and there were the widespread worldwide protests for Black Lives Matter. And I was sitting there at my day job for 10 hours a day thinking about how I wasn't helping at all. And I was just sitting here in my for-profit world and making a pretty good salary and, advancing my career. I got a promotion in 6 months. And then the whole time I was like, all I want to be doing is reading the news and figuring out how to be more involved. And I didn't like having a job where reading the news wasn't job relevant, right? When I was at the nonprofit, if I was sitting at my desk reading the news, that was my job. I was supposed to be informed about what was going on in my community. And now I was in a position where I was helping grocery store chains fix their IT portal. And it was just, I just finally, I felt so useless to the universe. And I felt like all I was doing was contributing to this capitalistic machine, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So in August I quit and had this long talk with myself about, okay, clearly the for-profit realm is not for you, because anywhere that you are, you could find a good corporation or a B Corp or a for-profit company that's trying to do community good, but I just felt like I had tried enough and I should just go back into community-centered work. That's where my passion is, and I've always known since I was really little, I've always known that I wanted to be contributing to the good of the world. And so I took September through December off completely. I'm privileged, so there's that. But I've also been really good with my money. And so I had a cushion to take some time off and just sort of figure out what I wanted to do. And then in about October, I decided to apply to grad school to get my teaching license. So that's kind of how I got to this point. And I sort of went through this process of deciding. I've always been internally a really high achiever, and I think that I'm caught in the loop of thinking that there is inherent value somehow in how well ranked something is and what other people are going to think of when they see the name of the place. And so I was stuck thinking do I apply to a bunch of different programs? Do I consider moving and leaving Cincinnati, which I didn't really want to do. And so then I kind of just decided that for me at least, this graduate program is more of a means to an end. I want to be into the classroom as fast as possible with the license that is going to be the most flexible for me to kind of evolve my career. And so I applied to the university that's up the road from me and gratefully got in actually pretty quickly, which was cool because I didn't have a whole lot of time kind of having to be anxious about it. And now I am starting. So my program is a Master's of Education in Curriculum and Instruction with initial licensure for secondary social science. I will be in school for 2 years. I've got a couple prerequisites that I also need to take on top of the graduate level courses just to pad the history part of my undergraduate education. Since I already had political science and economics, it fed into a lot of what the material is that I need to know for social studies in general, because a lot of my poli-sci classes undergrad were sort of history focused anyway. And so there will be some of that, and then just general curriculum instruction coursework, and then licensure coursework. So I'll be taking intro education classes and field experience, and I'll student teach for one of the semesters that I'll be in school. But hopefully I will be leaving in 2 years with licensure and a master's, and then start my job hunt. And so we'll see how that goes. So that's sort of how I got to deciding to go to grad school. And I know that people go to school for lots of different reasons, and there were other paths that I could have taken to get a license. Ohio actually has this expedited licensure program where you can submit your undergraduate transcripts and they approve or disapprove just taking the test, the Ohio Academic Content expertise test, and then you can just get this provisional license if a school will hire you. But I didn't really want to do that because you're going into it with no field experience, and then they require you to get the education anyway. So I figured I would just go straight into the academic part of it, get that done with, get it over with, and then get into the classroom as fast as possible. But there's lots of different ways to go about that. I'm also going to be able to go to school full time. I still kind of do part-time work with the nonprofit that I was working with. And so I'm really fortunate in that sense that I've consistently had extra income, and they'll be able to kind of keep feeding me projects to do on the side. So that's how I ended up where I am and starting this graduate program. And I wanted to just sort of explain all of that because I think it's really different to go into a graduate program after having been in the workforce for about 5 years. I'm really glad that I had that time instead of going straight from an undergraduate program into a graduate program, which I know a lot of people do. But for me, I was so lost that it's been really good to have this time kind of figure out what I want to do. And hopefully this is, a good, solid choice instead of a rash. I'm an angsty 20-something and don't know what to do with my life. I feel like this is really I hesitate to say calling, but it sort of feels like a calling. Like in the back of my mind, there's always been the voice saying like, you should go be a teacher, for like forever. And so I'm finally doing it. All right, well, thank you for following along with that rambling story. I am going to be recording a weekly vlog for this first week of school, so that'll be up next week, so make sure to check that out if you want to. Thanks, everybody.